Michelle, you can go ahead and record. All right, good afternoon. My name is Erica Wade. I'm the manager for the Office of Small Business Opportunity. And I just want to say welcome to all of you. It's so good to see so many of you joining us on your lunch period or lunchtime and just to say, hey, such a beautiful day in the neighborhood here at Richland County. And we're so delighted to have Mr. Zachary Kavanaugh from our Business Service Center, who will be our speaker today to talk about the new tax laws for Richland County. Before we get any further, I would like to introduce our OSBO team. We have Ms. Michelle Rosenthal, we have Ms. Pamela Green Swinton, we have Ms. Margaret Jones. I just want to say thank you to the team. If it wasn't for them, this wouldn't be possible today. Before we go any further, would you want to take care of some housekeeping items? Make sure that your microphones remain muted. We also want you to make sure you have a pen and piece of paper. Make sure you take notes. Please ask questions. We will have the staff monitoring the chat box. So throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, we'll see the questions in the chat box and we'll make sure Mr. Kavanaugh have an opportunity to answer. And also after his presentation, we will still have a question and answer period. We want to talk about some of the upcoming events that Richland County OSBO will be hosting. As you know, we're going to have monthly lunch and learn sessions. So May 19th, we're going to have Mr. John Gathers from SBDC. He will be talking about establishing business credit. This is really good, especially now that everything is opening. Businesses are opening. We want to make sure as you start expanding your business, we want you to be able to know how to establish business credit. Then on May 21st, we will have Mr. Charlton Whipple. He will talk about taking a deep dive into your financials. That's March 21st, to make sure that you will have access to these upcoming trainings. Please make sure you drop not only your name and your business, but make sure you put your email addresses in the chat box so we'll make sure you're added to our database because we want you to be a part of all the upcoming workshops and trainings that OSBO have available. We're going to ask Ms. Jones to come in and talk a little bit about OSBO and our certification process. Margaret Jones.
Good morning. I will be talking about the benefits of being certified with the Office of Small Business Opportunity. The benefits is you receive maximum firm exposure via our certified SLBE directory. You'll be eligible for projects that are set by OSBO, and utilization goals. You'll be a candidate for the business development opportunity, training, networking. We feature a story of our OSBO on our website, and our office can assist in building capacity. We have two areas of certification, which is our SLBE, which is our small local business enterprise. You will have to be located in Richmond County for at least 1 year prior to submission of your application. Independently owned and operated. Agree and comply with the program requirement, which is enforced by OSBO. And if your business is not located in Richland County, if you have 25% of your employees that live in Richland County, you can be certified by providing documents. Our ESLBE is our emerging small local business enterprise. The business must be located in Richland County for at least 1 year prior to submission of the application, independently owned and operated. Agree and comply with the program requirement, which is enforced by OSBO. We have 6 areas of certified industries. We have construction, architect, professional services, non-professional services, engineering, wholesale. Our program is an online, application is an online process. You can be certified for 2 years. Recertification is required after 2 years. Our online website is http://richlandcountysc.gov. I will put that information in the chat box. And you can also contact us at 803-576-1540. Thank you. Erica.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. I see we have a question in the chat box that asks, with this document or this information, can you find it anywhere? Yes, this information is also on our website, www.richmondcountysc.gov/OSBO. On our website, it talks about how you can become certified with OSBO as far as our SLB certification program. It also gives you links if you want to go back and watch some of our prior workshops and trainings that we have on our website. And like Michelle, like we talked about, featured stories, we feature our SLBEs. You can see some of our past SLBEs out there on our website. So it's a wealth of information. I really encourage you to visit our website. Again, and somebody can drop this in the chat box from the office, please, is www.richmondcountysc.gov/OSBO. I'm going to now go ahead and turn it over to Mrs. Zachary Kavanaugh because our lunch and learn is an hour session. We don't want to take a lot of time from him. Again, if you have any questions, please go ahead and drop them in the chat box and we'll monitor them and we'll make sure that your questions are answered. Zach?
Great. So thanks, Erica. I'd first like to just thank the Office of Small Business Opportunity for allowing me to speak today on the new changes that have occurred with South Carolina Act 176. And I'd like to also thank all the attendees today for spending their lunch hour with us to learn more about the changes that have occurred due to that new state law. So our presentation will be essentially in two phases. The first phase, I'm just going to talk to a set of foundation of what we actually do in the Business Service Center so that when I start explaining what we've had to change, it'll make more sense. So without further delay, I'll go ahead and get started. So I first just wanted to introduce the team at the Business Service Center. Obviously, there's myself. I'm the Director of Business Services. I've been working for Richland County for a little over 8 years. I started off as a business license inspector and was promoted to director a little over a year ago. I'm from Columbia. I'm from Richland County. I've lived here my entire life, 36 years. And I strive every day to improve the county any way that I can and to assist businesses in properly licensing their entities. So I'd just like to introduce just briefly the rest of the BSC team. We have 2 revenue analysts. We have Barbara and Sabrina. We have 2 revenue inspectors. We have Kyle and DeAndre. We have 1 revenue auditor, Cinnamon, and then 1 part-time receptionist, Peg. So I'm happy to say that we are fully staffed and will happily assist any business whenever they reach out to us. So just moving on, the responsibilities for the Business Service Center, we collect business license taxes fairly equitably and conveniently. The two taxes that our office collects is the business license tax and also local accommodation tax. We also assist the Richland County Auditor's Office with business personal property tax, and we manage and enforce the hospitality tax, which businesses selling prepared food would pay monthly, quarterly, or annually. And that is based on a business's revenue. So if the revenue doesn't meet a certain threshold, they might, instead of having to remit that 2% hospitality tax every month, they might do it quarterly or even annually. We try to issue our business licenses and permits, and I included permits in that because we do also process special event permits. The most recent one that comes to mind is the Sweet Potato Festival in Lower Richland. So we have been issuing some of those special event permits for the event itself and all of the vendors that will be taking part in that event. We also enforce the county's business license requirement, and that would be Kyle and DeAndre's responsibility. So they're currently in the office since we are in the middle of our business license renewal season. But as soon as we wrap up all of the renewals, they'll be back in the field, just ensuring that all the businesses within unincorporated Richland County are licensed and properly licensed for what type of business they are. And the last bullet point on this slide, I mean, I almost think it's almost the most important, is educating the business community regarding the various requirements they may need to meet, and collaborating with other organizations to catch some problems on the front end, because I think we're all aware that if you can kind of catch something up front, it's a lot easier to handle than after the fact. So I think the education aspect is incredibly important, and we strive to help anybody that we can. So we'll move on to the next one. So Business License 101. Our chapter in the Richland County Code and Ordinance is Chapter 16, and so 16-1 requires all businesses either located and/or doing business in unincorporated Richland County to obtain a license with our office, with the Business Service Center. So that is the code we have to operate under, and so we license, you know, and so what is unincorporated Richland County? Let's just start there. So unincorporated Richland County is any area of the county that is not within a city or town limit. So there's a handful of municipalities within the county. So City of Columbia, Forest Acres, Arcadia Lakes, Blythewood, Eastover, and I might have said Irmo. So they all do their own business licenses. So businesses located within those cities would certainly need to obtain that jurisdiction's license. But an example of a business that would need that, a city license or a municipal license, and then our license would be a landscaper or a contractor who may have a home base in a city or town or even outside of the county, but they come into unincorporated Richland County to do business, then that would require a Richland County business license. On average, we license about 10,000 businesses annually. Last year, in 2021 license year, we had 11,000. So that certainly fluctuates each year on how many businesses open, close, move. You know, there's a various amount of reasons why that number can change, but I'm happy to say that we've had 11,000. We've never had 11,000 licensed businesses in the county. So that indicates to me that the county's growing, business community is doing well, and I'm certainly happy to see that. So now we'll get into the business license tax itself. So the business license tax, they're based off the business's previous year's gross revenue, which would be on their tax return. And then so what a business earned, and that's the gross revenue is any income before any expense. So that's any revenue, that's all the revenue that you generated from the previous year. You report that to the Business Service Center, and then we in turn calculate your business license tax from that revenue. For a non-resident business, let's just say a construction contractor from Lexington County, they would only report the revenue that they generated in unincorporated Richland County. I'm not going to tax them on revenue that they did in any other jurisdiction because they're not located here. So the revenue reporting is important because I don't want businesses to essentially double tax themselves when they report maybe all the revenue to the town of Lexington, but then they report that same amount to me. That wouldn't be accurate, and they would be essentially paying the same tax on the two taxes on the same revenue. So we ask a lot of questions in our office to get to that correct number, because that's the last thing we want to do. We want to collect our taxes fairly and equitably. We don't want to take a business's money that the county's not due. So that's incredibly important, and everybody in the Business Service Center, we strive to make sure we're taxing them at the exact right amount, and nothing more, nothing less. And then now we're going to get into the tax structure itself. So each business, they're put into 9 different rate classes. And the rate class determines how much your business license will be calculated from. It gives you basically a base rate amount and then an incremental rate amount. And they're placed into their 1 through 9 rate classes based on their NAICS code. And that stands for North American Industry Classification System. And we get those business codes from the Census Bureau. And so it's a 6-digit code, and we look up those codes from the Census Bureau's website, and then we just do a keyword search. Let's say you just type in landscaping, it'll throw you a code for landscaping, and then that code itself will determine what rate class you're put into. And I'll get into that a little bit further later. But that's pretty important, because with the new state law, that affected this aspect of the business license process. And I mentioned earlier, so each rate class has a different base rate, and the base rate goes from $0 to $2,000 that a business would earn. And then there's what we call an incremental rate, which increases as the business revenue increases. And that revenue would say for every 1,000 additional dollars a business would earn above the base rate, they would pay an incremental rate for every additional $1,000 until you get to $1 million. And then we have what's called a depreciating rate schedule, which then the incremental rate will go down a percentage up to $10 million. And then at $10 million, it caps out. But I'll get into that later. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves. So for example, so say a business was in rate class 1, your base rate, so the cheapest license you could get, say you only generated $2,000, you'll pay $16.85 on that 2,000 revenue. And then if you were to go above that, you would pay 84 cents per thousand above that base rate range. So in the scheme of things, I think that our rate structure is very low, very competitive. Every jurisdiction has different base rate amounts and incremental rate amounts. So we at Richland County want to keep these as low as we can to prevent a business from opening. We don't want the business license tax to be a barrier for a business to open. So we try to keep it competitive, and we try to keep it as low as we can to prevent that from happening. So how do you get a business license, right? For a commercial, say you had a business located in unincorporated Richland County at a commercial location. And every business has different requirements they need to be met, and we ensure that they're all met before we would issue a Richland County license. But at a very minimum, a business with a commercial location within unincorporated Richland County would have to gain approval from our zoning department, our building division, and also a fire marshal will go out there and do a site inspection to make sure the location is up to the fire marshal's code. And so that's at the very minimum. Depending on what kind of business you have, there could be some state requirements that need to be met that we will also ensure before we issue a county business license. But so basically, to get a license, you'll come to the Business Service Center. We will hand you some paperwork, and we will instruct you on what steps need to be taken to properly license your business. And then we kind of send you on your way, and then you kind of go through those steps, which we outline for you. And we'll spend as much time as we need to outline those steps, because I don't want any confusion in that middle part of this process. And then once you get all those steps and requirements met, you come back to us. We will enter your business information into our database. We'll calculate your business license fee using that base rate and incremental rate, and you'll pay the business tax, and then we'll issue and print your business license for you. And we can either mail it to you, we can send it to you electronically. But in the code, it does require the actual physical copy of the business license to be displayed in a conspicuous location at the business location. Just in case one of our inspectors pop in, they can just take a look at the license on the wall and if they see that everything's good to go, they'll probably just say hello and then just move on to the next one. So, and then any other county inspector, not just the business service center inspectors, they might pop in and check that as well. So that kind of just saves the county a lot of time. And like I said, it is required by the code. And even for home-based businesses located in unincorporated Richland County, they will at least need our zoning division's approval. And they also need to complete what's called a home occupation application, since there are certain restrictions that the zoning division has for home-based businesses. So just think about it. Say your neighbor had a home-based business, you really wouldn't want signage out there, a bunch of employees coming and going, parking could be an issue. There could be traffic issues. So that home occupation application ensures that the restrictions on a home-based business are met and understood by the business owner. Okay, so now we're going to get into the new state law, which is South Carolina Act 176, also known as the Business License Standardization Act. So in 2020, South Carolina General Assembly passed Act 176, which requires all licensing jurisdictions in South Carolina to use a single license expiration date of April 30th, and change their license year from whatever it used to be to run from May 1st to April 30th. So that was one of the major changes the Business Service Center had to make, because we used to run our license year on a calendar year. So all of our licenses would expire on December 31st. Businesses would have till March 15th the following year to renew the business license, to avoid any penalties being applied to their license tax. And so you had a couple options to transition to this new license year. And so what I ended up doing is extending our 2021 business license year to April 30th, 2022. So if you have a current 2021 business license, it won't expire until the end of this month. And we've already started renewing for 2022. So if you were to get a 2022 business license today, it wouldn't expire until April 30th, 2023. And so I just extended the 2021 license year. Some jurisdictions did a short license year from, if they were previously operating under the old calendar year, they did a short license year to make up that gap from January to April 30th. We have 11,000 businesses. We have 7 people in the office. That's just not reasonable. And so we just extended it. And so, that's the only 2 options you really had to move forward with the date change. And so Richland County, we just extended 2021's year. Other practices that must be standardized as well is the method of calculating a business license, which is still based on, and this is for the renewal of a business license, it's still, the calculation of the tax is still based on the previous year's calendar gross revenue, or this is another change, or if the business runs off their own fiscal year, we have to accept that reporting as well. So we didn't used to do the fiscal year exception, but now South Carolina Act 176 requires that, and then that's no problem. It's just a different way a business can report their revenue to our office. Another major aspect of South Carolina Act 176 is the setting of the rate classes. So essentially the placement of every business type into their new rate class was determined by this new state law. I didn't have any say in that. So essentially, once I placed all 11 or 10,000 businesses into their new rate class with our previous rate class structure, the county was going to end up losing a little over $1.5 million in business license tax. And another aspect of the state law is that the licensing jurisdiction is allowed to adjust their base rate and incremental rates to prevent a loss of revenue but they can't adjust them to the point where they gain any more revenue from that rebalancing of the actual rates themselves. And so I did rebalance the rates. I made it as minimal of a change as possible. And so some businesses might see a small increase in their tax this year, and some might not. But I made that change as minimal as possible. And in adjusting these rates a little bit at a time, you multiply that by 11,000 businesses, it makes a huge impact overall. So that's what helped us out is not increasing the tax as much because of the volume of businesses that we do have in Richland County. And I'll get into that a little bit later. Another aspect is the acceptance of a new standard license application. We have our own business service center license application, but now the state Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office came up with a statewide new business license application, which we have to accept now, and it's very similar to ours. And so you can use both. And so that's for any licensing jurisdiction in the entire state. They all have to accept that new application. And like I said, it's not much different than the one we already use. So that's not that big of a deal as far as operations go. And then there is a new statewide online renewal payment center. Unfortunately, I was unable to get our data imported into that new statewide renewal center. I am required by state law to get on it next year. And one of the reasons is that my data upload wasn't importing properly. And we have our own online portal already. Not every jurisdiction in South Carolina has the capability to renew a business license online. We've had that capability for at least 10 years. So I certainly will get on it next year, and we'll have to monitor that portal to comply with this new state law. There was a handful of jurisdictions in South Carolina that just couldn't get it to work this year, but by law, we all have to be on it by 2023. So I'll be working on that later this year, and I'll get Richland County certainly on that new portal. I just have some kinks to work out. So all of it taxing jurisdictions, we had until January 1st of this year to implement these changes, which Richland County certainly met that deadline. So it was a lot of work, but we got it done. So I'm pretty happy about that. So here's the business license rate schedule I mentioned earlier. So this is the new one. So these are the rate class 1 through 7s, which is about 82% of all business types. So the vast majority of businesses will fall in this 1 through 7 rate class. And as you see, I actually rate class 1, I left that one alone at $16.85 for the base rate, and then 84 cents for the incremental rate. And that's for every additional $1,000 you would go above the base rate range. And so myself and administration, we came up with this model. And as you can notice, the base rate started at $16.85. They increased $2 as you increase in each rate class. And then the incremental rate, it starts at 84 cents per thousand, and it increases 10 cents as you go up through the rate classes. And so that was very similar to the old rate class. I actually decreased every base rate except for rate class 1, because I didn't change those at all. And the reasoning behind that was some businesses, when they come in to apply for a license, they truly don't know what their revenue will be their first year. And so I didn't want to have a barrier to prevent somebody from obtaining a license because how much it costs. So I decreased every base rate. Maybe it could have been 10 cents, it could have been $1. There was no even pattern throughout the rate classes before I rebalanced them. So I basically, in my eyes, I made it cheaper to obtain a business license if you truly don't know what your revenue would be, because on the first year, a business has to project that. And so a lot of folks, they want to start a business, they know what they want to do, but maybe they don't have any clients yet. And so I can't tell you what to put down as your revenue projection. I can just say that, you know, anything that you put down on your application from $0 to $2,000, that's going to stay within the base rate range. And so that the fee will be the same. And so I decreased that. So to obtain a license and the cheapest, you know, we can make it, I didn't want that to be a barrier to actually get your business off the ground and running. And then, so that's one aspect of the major changes that we've had to make. I'm going to change my screen to what rate class your business is going to fall into. So I'm going to change my screen to the chart that, can everybody see this chart, the 2022 business license rate schedule? Okay. So this is the state mandated chart that placed everybody into their new rate classes. So as you see on the left column, it says NICS sector or subsector. And what they did, you know, most people's, well, everybody's NAICS code is 6 digits, but this subsector of those 6 digits, the first 2 digits places you into a broader sector of business industry. So they just used the first 2 digits of all the NAICS codes to place them into their new rate classes. And this was a huge aspect of South Carolina Act 176. So the placement of everybody into their new class was mandated by the state government. And then once we put everybody in their new class, the county was going to lose a substantial amount of revenue. And then that's when I went in and rebalanced the classes themselves. So as you can see, you know, agriculture, they're now a rate class 2. Retail trade, they're 1. So as you can see, you know, this is the chart that I had to go by to place every business type into their new spot, essentially. And then so the 1 through 7s, they're in this first section. And then we start getting into the rate class 8s, which are mandatory or recommended subclasses. We had subclass 8s in the past. And so I had to switch some of these folks around into their new subclasses. And some of these businesses, county governments aren't legally allowed to license. So we have them in their new spot. So rail transportation, due to state law, county governments can't impose a business license tax on rail transportation, utility companies. So that's these 8.3s and then these 8.40s. We don't license any of them, but I still put them in their spot because, you know, the state government could change their mind. And I just wanted to have the software updated to where if they do make a change in the future, we could just simply flip a switch and start licensing those business types. And then another aspect of South Carolina Act 176 is these optional rate class 9 subclasses. And as you can see, the NICS code is 6 digits in these, except for the automobile dealers and the other motor vehicle dealers. We place these businesses into rate class 9s for a few reasons. One of the reasons is businesses that create a I don't want to say burden, but require more county services than other business types we're allowed to place in these rate class 9s to address that additional service that the county has to provide to these business types. They're no more expensive than any other business type. We just separated them out because that's just what myself and administration decided to do. And then here's another, here's the rate class. This is again, that was in that last slide on the presentation. And then one more thing I wanted to just show before we can get to some questions, because I know this is a lot of information. Can be confusing, but I just wanted to go over a couple more aspects of the new state law before we open it up for questions. So just bear with me for one moment. And some of this stuff I may have already gone over, but I just wanted to make sure I touch all of the new changes that we have made. Can everybody see my screen where it says standardization, new law, new action? Okay. So I've mentioned already about the date change for the standard license year going from May 1st to April 30th. The calculation of the business license tax on gross income from the calendar or business's fiscal year. That's one aspect that we've already briefly talked about. They standardized the definition of gross income, which clarifies the gross income on what non-residents businesses pay. I kind of touched on that earlier with the example with a non-resident landscaper or contractor. And we've already been doing a lot of this already, but some other jurisdictions weren't. So this just standardizes it throughout the state. It clarifies split commissions among real estate agents and is only income agents retain. Manufacturers can calculate their tax on the lesser of two options. It's the income allocated or apportioned to a location, or the expenses of a location as a cost center. So at some of our conferences, I have some municipalities bring this up, where they might just have a location in their jurisdiction that is just a warehouse. And all they do is store, it could be anything in the warehouse. And so, yeah, that business is generating revenue off the items from that warehouse, but the location that is operating as solely a warehouse doesn't generate any revenue. And so the licensing jurisdiction is allowed to request what the expenses of operating that warehouse would be, and they can calculate their tax on that. I don't run into that very often, and I don't really see the need to do that, but it's something that we're allowed to do now. And then another thing is that standard business license application distributed by the South Carolina Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office. We'll happily accept that along with our own application. Refunds, right? I got a stack of refunds right here I need to process. I'm gonna do it this afternoon, but some people might overfile their revenue, which would in turn create an overpayment for their business license tax. It says they have to be requested by June 1st. That doesn't mean that anybody requesting a refund after June 1st, I tell them no. I certainly will process a refund after June 1st. It just kind of standardizes that process for throughout the state. But at a very minimum, I have to request a refund before June 1st. But like I said, I'm going to process refunds as they come in. If you overpaid, I'll certainly get that refund check back to you as soon as I can. So the standard class schedule must adopt the updated class schedule every odd year. So that'll be next year. I don't know if there is a new schedule that's going to come out yet, but if there is, I'll update our class schedule accordingly. And then that class schedule is recommended by the Municipal Association of South Carolina, and it's certified by the South Carolina Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office. We are allowed the flexibility to create subclasses for economic development. So say Jeff Rubel from Economic Development is working with a large corporation. We can create a subclass for that. I haven't had that come up yet, but this new law does allow for that. So special agreements, this is something I found kind of interesting. Some jurisdictions will give a business industry or just a specific business kind of like a special agreement from the past, whether it's an economic development incentive or something like that. And essentially this new state law protects those historical agreements. So anybody that kind of had some sort of incentive or agreement from the past, it's protected still. I asked Danny Crow, who is one of the foremost experts in business license tax law in the state, if he was aware of any special agreements that Richland County has historically, and he didn't have an answer for me, but his advice was just kind of address those as they come up on a case-to-case basis. I haven't come across any, but when I do, I'll have to just kind of look at it on a case-to-case basis. So the transition period sets January 1st as the effective date. I kind of touched on this earlier with the rebalancing of the rate class itself. You know, the first year I could adjust the rates from realizing a windfall in revenue, but the rebalanced structure I proposed and was passed, it was a 0% change, and I based that data off of the 2020 license year data, which would have really been 2019's revenue from the businesses, because we're always looking at a year in the past. And then it allows cities and counties to gain new revenue in a transition year from resulting in the growth of number of businesses, right? So I can generate more revenue this year, but not from the rebalancing of the rate structures. If I can't, you know, if I get more businesses than I've ever had and the businesses generate more revenue, we can generate more revenue as a whole, but I just can't generate more revenue from the rebalancing of the rate structure itself. The online payment portal, like I said, we haven't gotten on that this year, but I will be required by law to get on it by January 1st, 23, and I will certainly meet that deadline. The appeals process, there's a standard appeals process. So say myself or one of the team members in Business Service Center assesses your fees and you believe that they're too high, you certainly can appeal that to our appeals board. And so that standardized that process. That process did not change for us because we were already doing it that way historically. So that didn't really make that big of a difference for us. And then lastly, there's this is kind of controversial. Third-party agencies that will identify non-compliant businesses for cities and towns and counties. We don't use them. We have 2 inspectors, Kyle and DeAndre, so I don't feel a need for that. Smaller jurisdictions do use third parties to identify non-compliant businesses, maybe because they don't have an inspector, or I think, you know, I think City of Casey, I think they might only have 1 inspector, right? So they just want to capture some of these non-compliant businesses, and we are allowed to use these third parties, but it restricts the third party's contact with the non-compliant businesses. So essentially, we can sub out this service to a third party, and they can identify the businesses, but they can't contact them. They have to provide that information to the licensing jurisdiction, which then can contact them, because we were getting a lot of complaints from businesses saying they thought it was a scam, which I don't blame them. There's so many scams out today. They didn't think it was real, but it definitely exists. But as far as Richland County is concerned, we don't use them right now, and I don't see a need for them anytime soon. So that kind of wraps up a lot of the changes that were made. So to sum it up, the main aspects for the Business Service Center in Richland County is the date change and the rate change. So the date, the business license year changed from May 1st to April 30th, and then the rates changed a little bit. Most people will see a decrease in their price, but some people will see a small increase, and that is determined by what kind of business you are and what rate class you were placed into, which was dictated by the new state law. So that kind of wraps up my my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Exactly. Hey, Mr. Kavanaugh, yes, we do have some questions in the chat box. I'll go ahead and read them to you. So Mary Weaver, she asked, what about the 501c3 businesses with no unrelated business income? Can you answer that question?
That is a fantastic question. So 501c3s, and it could be a 501c5, any 501c, I'll just leave it at that. They are required to obtain a business license with Richland County. But if there is no unrelated income, then we exempt the business license tax. They are exempt from paying the business license tax. They just have to go through the process of obtaining a license itself. So yes, we do license nonprofits, but we just don't charge them anything for it.
Okay, the next question we have, I was advised that we were not required to have a business license for Ovation at 3,500 apartments, even though we have 8 buildings of the apartment community within Richland County. Can you confirm if this is true?
Okay, so it sounds like there's an apartment complex, and if it's located in unincorporated Richland County, that would require a business license. But if it's not located in unincorporated Richland County, then wherever it's located, say it might be Forest Acres, City of Columbia, Town of Irma, it would just need that license. So yeah, I can confirm that if there is an apartment complex located in unincorporated Richland County, the apartment complex would need a business license, and also the property management company would also need a business license. Sometimes that could be the same entity, or sometimes that could be separate, but we would want to license both of those.
All right. Tiffany Glover, if a business license is required in the City of Columbia, one is not needed for Richland County also?
That's a great question. So if the business is located in the City of Columbia and only operating within the City of Columbia, it would not need a Richland County license as well. A scenario where both might be needed would be, let's say, like a pest control company that has its home base office on Main Street in the city, but they also service clients in unincorporated Richland County. That then would require the Richland County license as well. But if you're just operating in the city and you're based in the city, all you need was the city business license.
Okay. Deborah is asking, have the renewal forms been mailed out, or is everything going digital?
Right. So the renewal forms have gone out. They were mailed out on the 15th, and I would just apologize for the delay. We had some issues with the proofs that were coming from the printer. We mailed out 8,500 renewals. And so they went out on the 15th. And so since there was a delay in getting those to all the businesses in the county, the license will expire at the end of this month, but the county and the business service center will not impose any penalties until the end of next month. So if you as long as you can get it back to us before June 1st, we won't impose any penalties on the license tax for being late.
Okay.
And that'll be for this year only. Next year, we'll start renewal season a lot earlier. And then that'll provide ample time for businesses to get their renewals back to us. But if you're worried about the deadline, just reach out to us by email, phone, and we can kind of sort that out at a case-by-case basis. But right now, since we started renewals, I got my I do it every day. We've issued 885 business licenses. We have 428 of them in what's called paid status. So we had a couple hundred renew online yesterday, and so we haven't had a time to process those today. So that would be why those are in paid status. And then we have 499 business accounts that are in pending status. And the main reason for that would be a business went online, calculated their fees, and instead of paying online, they wanted to mail a check. And so they can print off a certification page off our online portal and just throw a check in the mail with that. And we're starting to get those showing up in the office. We started getting those last week.
All right. I know you showed the rate class schedule, but Angela is asking, where can we see the rate class cost base on our next code? Can we find that online anywhere?
Right. So the best place, and I'll probably publish that on our website, but I haven't done that yet. So the best place to locate that would be the council agenda for April 5th of this year. It has, because they had to adopt the new rate class on that. That was the third reading, which isn't a great place to find it, but that's where it currently is. But I will upload that to our website. I can do that this afternoon. So it'll be on our BSC homepage. I'll update that this afternoon. That's a great point.
Okay. Do you know when the City of Columbia business licenses must be renewed by?
So the City of Columbia started their renewal season earlier than us. So I'm pretty sure their deadline is the end of this month.
Okay.
But you can contact them at 803-545-3345.
Okay, can somebody from our team put that in the chat box, please? Alicia Leek is asking, can you post a link to the new standard applications? Or is it online?
Yep. I can also put that on our website this afternoon. I've been kind of preoccupied with process and renewals, but I certainly need to get as much information up there as possible. So yeah, I will, and that's for the new business applications only, but yeah, I'll certainly get that uploaded to our website, to the homepage.
Can you give us that website, Zach?
Sure. So it's www.richlandcountysc.gov/BSC for Business Service Center.
Okay. It says, where do I think we've covered that already. Where do I find out what my rate code falls in?
Right. Yep. So I'll get that uploaded to the website today. So it's based on what kind of business it is. And I'll put that chart up there along with the rate classes themselves. So you can determine what rate class your business falls into.
Okay, Dave Johnson is asking for professional services, engineering services, businesses located in incorporated areas that offer these services to clients other than businesses located within the unincorporated Richland County. Would they need to obtain a business license?
Erica, could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Okay, for professional services / engineering services, businesses located in the incorporated areas that offer these type services to clients other businesses located within the unincorporated Richland County, would they need to obtain a business license?
They would, right. So if they were servicing any area of the unincorporated Richland County, they would need to obtain our office's license. Yes.
All right. Can you put the link of the application in an email from OSBO? Okay, we'll get that to you, Alicia. I've noticed that there are times when we don't receive the actual business licenses. Is there a standard method of mailing them, or can we access them online?
So, right. So when we process a renewal or a new license, usually when we process a new license, the business owner's at the counter, so we just hand it to them. We just need to make sure the mailing address is accurate. We do get a lot of returned mail every year, and they'll probably start showing up soon. So what our receptionist does at the end of each year, she'll go through all that return mail, contact those business owners, and then verify their mailing address. Sometimes people switch from a PO box to their home address to a PO box. They might just move their business altogether. And so just ensuring that our office has your correct mailing address will ensure that we get that license to you in the mail. And then if you don't receive it, you can certainly reach out to us, and we can make sure that that license, that mailing address is accurate. And we can email you a PDF copy too, but that would just have to be on a case-to-case basis. It's not able to be printed online, but we can certainly look into maybe doing something like that later this year.
JT Steele is asking, can our codes be on our license, or is it already on it?
So the NAICS code isn't on the license, but the business activity associated with it is. So if you owned a shoe store, you would have the NAICS code for a shoe store. And then it would just say on your license, only approved business activity, it would say shoe store. So the code, they actually on our previous licenses, and I think in 2020 and up to 2005, from 2005 to 2020, it did have the actual NEICS code on the license, but a lot of folks didn't know what that was. And so we just switched it to actually just have the description of it rather than the code itself.
Okay, Mary Weaver is saying, can 501c3s with no unrelated business income apply online to renew this year? Last year we could not.
Right, so unfortunately our online renewal portal doesn't recognize the 501c exemptions. So if you can go on and do it, right? But we would prefer that you not, because it would charge you the tax when you do not need to be charged the tax. And then I'll end up just having to refund it. So we recommend that any of our nonprofits or other exempt categories just renew by mail. And then for 501cs, we do require a copy of their most recent 990 tax return. Or if it's a newer 501c, just a copy of their exemption letter from the IRS. So we are able to exempt the tax for them. And that just has to be done within our database. It's just, unfortunately, there's so many scenarios with the online portal. It could create some glitches, which would prevent, other businesses who aren't exempt, to not be. So we kind of handle those on a just by mail currently, or email. I could certainly email a president of a 501c a renewal application. They can email me back the renewal and then their 990 or their exemption letter, and then we can do it electronically. Since there's no payment involved, we can certainly handle that electronically as well.
Okay, and I think this is our last question. Will the Richland County Business Service Center deductions worksheet be updated with a 2022 date?
I'd have to check on that. I would assume they're referring to the one on our website. And if they are, I will just have to upload the current 2022 one. Yes, but we would still accept the 21 just because if it's just the date, we'd still accept it this year. There's just some changes that still need to be implemented, and our website is pretty expansive, and so trying to find every little thing that needs updating can be a challenge sometimes, but I'll certainly get that updated. I have it in my files. I just need to actually put it on the website. But we would accept a 2021 deduction worksheet. We would certainly honor that this year.
Okay, we had another question that's popped in the chat. How does the rate and code impact a business that may fall under multiple classes? Example, business that offers beauty services, salons, and retail apparel accessories.
That's a good one. That's a great question. So say you have a business that does a handful of different services, and so we can have as many NICS codes or business activity codes in the same account as long as you get approval for those, right, from zoning, building, and fire marshal if you're a commercial location. And then what we do, and you'll get multiple licenses that have each activity on those actual licenses. And so we determine what business activity is the highest rate class, and we just charge you on that one highest rate class. So say you had a beauty salon, you did landscaping. I'm just gonna throw a bunch of random activities out there. You got a beauty salon, you do landscaping, you got a pest control, you got a shoe store, whatever one of those 4 business types is the highest price, right? We would just charge you on that one. And if you wanted to combine all that revenue, that's what we would do in that scenario. If you wanted to break all those revenues out and say, just get a license for each one, we would charge you on the revenue for each business activity, which would be on each rate class that you would be placed into. So there's two ways we can do that. I think the cheaper of the option is to just pay the highest rate and bulk all your revenue into one. But say you have a food truck's got a pretty high rate. And I had one scenario that just comes to mind. We had a business owner who owned a restaurant, but also owned a food truck. And she decided to put both of those activities under one license. So we charged her the food truck license rate, which was substantially higher than her restaurant rate. And she had a little sticker shock when she got the bill, or they got the assessment. And so what I ended up doing, I just broke out, because her food truck didn't generate as much revenue as her restaurant, but she's paying on the food truck rate. And so what we ended up doing, we just separated those accounts out. I got her a food truck license and a restaurant license. And then, she paid the food truck rate on the food truck license and then the restaurant rate on the restaurant license. And that was how we worked towards that solution. But it's kind of up to the business owner, however they want to do it. We're kind of flexible. And so if they just want one entity that does a bunch of different types of business, we'll do it that way. And we'll just charge you on the highest rate. Or if you want to break it out, we can break it out.
All righty. Last question. What type of electronic payments are accepted?
Okay, that's a great payment.
ACH, EFT, an option to be set up with?
Yes, so I just switched online payment vendors to sc.gov, to the treasurer's office uses. We use them for in-office payments. And then I just switched from a business called Merchant eSolutions, which only accepted credit and debit cards and charged you 3%, to sc.gov, which has enabled us to accept ACH payments, which is a flat fee of $2.50. And then it also accepts credit and debit, which is $1 and 1.7%, which is just, the rate that sc.gov uses for credit and debit. So, if you got a really big bill, say you did, $50 million and your bill's, $40,000, I would certainly select the ACH option and only pay $2.50 on that transaction, opposed to a credit and debit, which would be that percentage. I've seen both, but that's just kind of what I would recommend. But yep, so we accept ACH and debit and credit online, which is a new thing this year.
All right, I think this completes all of our questions. We just want to say on behalf of Richland County Office of Small Business Opportunity, thank you, Zachary Kavanaugh, for such an enlightening workshop. This has been a lot of information. Again, this live stream has been recorded. It will be posted on our website and on Richland County's YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and review it, and maybe it may have been something that you may have missed and you want to go back and listen to it again, definitely you will have the chance to do so. Again, Mr. Kavanaugh, can you give them a phone number if anybody have any additional questions, or how can they get in contact with your office?
Yep, absolutely. So you can get in touch with our office by phone at 803-576-2287. You can email us at bsc@richlandcountysc.gov. Just be a little patient with us this time of year. We're in the middle of renewal season, but we will get back to you as soon as we can. I just wanted to thank all the attendees today for showing up for this presentation, and also the Office of Small Business Opportunity for allowing me to present on the new changes that were made due to the new state law.
And again, we thank you. If you want to save, I know there is a lot of information that was put into the chat. Some questions were answered. So there's 3 dots at the bottom of the chat next to the little smiley face. If you can click on those 3 dots, it would allow you to save the chat. So you'll be able to go back and maybe get some email addresses. I know our businesses, they put their names and their contact information into the chat. So if you want a chance to network, that's another way to do so. Again, we just want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you to the team, OSBO team. Again, thank you, Zachary, for all this information. Again, our next Lunch and Learn will be March the 19th, and the title for that particular class will be Establishing Business Credit. And we will have Mr. John Gethers from South Carolina Business Development Center. So I encourage you to monitor your emails. You will get the updates, you'll see the flyers, and I encourage you to sign up, and we will see you on the 19th. Again, have a safe and happy rest of the day and rest of the week. Thank you all.
You said March. Ms. Wade.